When you've got lots of projects, leather can be a very valuable resource. The trick is, how do you get leather without spending an arm and a leg? A shoe like this has seen lots of miles, but it has more miles to give because we can take a shoe apart like this and have all kinds of amazing pieces of leather for another project for another day. I just pulled this shoe apart and you can see all the leather that you can get from it. But pulling a shoe apart is actually quite a bit of work, and you might be surprised what it takes to actually pull one of these things apart. I'm going to go through the process on how to take this shoe apart using these 3 tools. And in here, there's some nails that you're really going to have a hard time with, because in the back you can see just the ribbing, and you really have to get on there and pull them out. But there's a lot of stitching that needs to come apart, and I'll show you how to do that. If you take a knife, you can get in here and just very carefully start to take apart the easy seams. But you can see, I mean, they really do build these things to hold up. So a good sharp knife, you can start to dismantle the shoe. So anytime there's a stitch, a good sharp knife, you want to go through, but you want to make sure that you don't cut the leather. So just very slowly knock out all these little pieces of thread. On big pieces of thread you can get in with some good sharp cutters and go ahead and start clipping it off. Some of these threads are really thick, and you can see is completely start to dismantle it, and when you see additional thread, just keep cutting. I've almost got this side free, so you can see as you open it up what you've got. As you get things opened up a little bit better, you get better access, so you can see the stitches and just kind of keep working them out. You can see how well or how much stitching goes into a shoe. It's not just like pull it apart. Now we have this top piece out. Now we have better access to take this top piece out. Just be careful not to damage any of the leather, because this leather can be used for all kinds of projects. Things that will just keep you creative. And I realize that this is all one piece of leather here. On the other shoe I cut that off, but now I'm glad I kind of left it. A piece of leather like this can be reconditioned. You can strip off this coating, you can wet it, you can stretch it, and rework that into whatever you want. Now this piece of leather here is very large. You can see when you get it all flattened out, what a nice valuable piece of leather that is. This inner piece comes right out like that, but you can see in here, this is where those nails are, and you just can't pull these out. You have to actually extract these nails. So in order to remove this piece of leather, you'll have to take this strapping, this string, and just start to cut it out, and that'll weaken it so we can start to pull it out. With this stitching kind of loosened up, just go in there and you can see as I pull, this stuff is really in there. So give it a good tug until it comes out. In order to get the nails out here, I'm going to take the front off. So you just take your sharp blade and start to loosen these stitches up here, being very careful not to cut yourself, but you don't want to cut the leather because this is a nice big valuable piece. But you can see as you cut it, you start to be able to open all this up. So I'll give this a pull and see how far I can get. I don't want to damage the leather, but you can usually get pretty far like that, and that actually did really well. In fact, I even got that nail out without having to pull it out. With this fiber board kind of out of the way, you can take a pair of pliers and get it in here, and you'll see as I pull, there's a lot of force. In fact, I just cut the head of the nail off, but you can see that that is the nail. One more nail, and we'll have this released from the sole of the shoe. In order to split this seam, there's a lot of layers that need to come off. We've got this outer edge here. We have this back portion that needs to come off. So we'll just take them off one at a time. So without damaging the leather, we just want to feel the knife cut through all the thread. And you can start to see that you'll be able to pull this and unstitch all of that. Once the stitches start to come out, you can actually take your knife and work it all the way around, making sure that you don't cut through any of the leather. These straight areas are a lot easier than the curves. Now that we have that out, we can start to work on this inner seam. And this really gives you an appreciation for the people that put these shoes together, because it's a lot of work to get them apart. It was a lot of work to make it all happen. Once you get it going, just kind of keep applying pressure to the leather and just keep moving it out of the way and taking out the stitches. So instead of throwing away these old shoes that are pretty beat, it'll certainly give us some nice leather strips for another project. I'll start working on this back piece a little bit. Trying to get the first cut in takes a lot more time. You don't want to damage the leather, and you don't want to cut yourself. Once you get it going, it's a lot easier. To give this shoe a little extra backing in the back, they put this piece of plastic in so it doesn't roll as you try to put your shoe on. And here's the back piece. Now we can cut the seam in the back. This crisscross stitching, we'll just take our knife and lightly drag it over and loosen up the threads, because if we can loosen them up, we might be able to pull it apart. With everything loosened up, we'll try to pull it apart. Almost got it. We'll have to trim that. There we go. Now it's apart. And you can see that's a nice big piece of leather. And with this pair of shoes, you can see this will add quite a bit of leather stock to our supply. Now you can see there's all kinds of leather belts and anything that's leather, and we're going to add this stuff in for a rainy day. Before you throw away those old shoes, you may decide to get some leather stock for a rainy day. Well, I really appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.